My name is Kendall Crowell, and I actually took a research class here at UNA with Dr. Stanger from the mathematics department. Um, the class is actually a collaboration with Hudson Alpha, which is a really big lab in Huntsville, Alabama that focuses mostly in like genomics and genetic counseling. So my research experience was based around bioinformatics, which is the use of like programming software and 3D modeling software. You can be in, I know we had like computer science majors, mathematics majors, biology majors, chemistry majors, a little bit of everything in this class just because it's so good at introducing you to the process of research, whether no matter what kind of research it is. Because the whole semester, she walks you through it step by step and shows you how to put a research poster together. And at the end of the semester, you get to go to UNA Scholars Day, which is really fun, and kind of dip your toes in the water of presenting this thing that you've worked on for a really long time that you're really proud of, that nobody else in the room knows more about than you do, and it feels really cool. And then you also get to go to the Hudson Alpha Research Symposium, and that's kind of a bigger scale, I guess, of the UNA Scholars Day, but it's essentially the same thing. There are judges, which sounds scary at first, but it's not. They're really nice, and they just ask you questions about your poster. So the registration process for this particular course is a bit more involved and selective than other courses on campus. So the way it works is, or the way I did it, I'll just tell you my personal experience. The first thing I did was talked to Vince about it because he knew I was interested in research, and I knew he would have good suggestions for what I should do first, and he was right. Even though I was hesitant, he was right. He recommended I go introduce myself to Dr. Stanger during their fall, like it's like a UNA Scholars Day, but it's just for like the code students or like STEM students, and it happens in the science building rather than the library. It's a little bit smaller, but that's what they do in the fall, if you take the course in the fall. So I went to that in November, my bad. I went to that in November to introduce myself to Dr. Stanger and just let her know I was interested, and I went and talked to some of the students who were taking the course that semester and asked them my questions. And I think that was really beneficial because like I said, I was really hesitant to take it. So after I did that, I decided, okay, I want to register for this. I want to take it. So I went to Dr. Bruton and I let him know. I was like, hey, I really liked Dr. Stanger. The class seems really interesting. So would you mind to recommend me for it? And that is one of the parts that I guess would be considered more involved in the registration process, is you do have to get a staff recommendation in order to be selected to register for the course. So keep that in mind if you decide you would like to take that route. I highly recommend it.
Hello, my name is Mackenzie Apps, and I am a senior here at UNA. This is my second year that I will be doing research here, so my third semester. The first 2 semesters while I was here, I did research with Dr. Beecraft, who is the microbiology professor. It was kind of unordinary how I ended up in that lab. He just kind of approached me after class one day and asked if I was interested. I think it was mostly because I was very engaged in the class. But then I spent a year in his lab. We met twice a week for 2 hours, and since he's microbiology, we did a lot of microbiology research. We looked at genes, and so there was a lot of computer programs that we used, and we also did some PCR, and it was really interesting. It like prepared me for my genetics class that I ended up taking later. And so I did that for 2 semesters, and at the end of my second semester, I actually got to go to a conference in Arkansas where I presented the research that I conducted with him. We basically spent the whole second semester just working on the poster to make sure it looked nice and presented the research the way that we wanted. But that was super helpful to have that experience, and the university actually paid for all the travel fees and everything like that. It actually landed during spring break, so it made my spring break interesting, but Didn't have to miss any class for it, so that was nice. But yeah, so after presenting my research, it was kind of the end of doing research with Dr. Beecraft, and the other student that I had worked with was graduating. And so I am very much more interested in field research rather than lab research, even though it was very helpful. I definitely wanted to get more field experience, and that is where I heard about Dr. Ray, who is the fish guy basically in the science building. He teaches natural history of vertebrates and evolution, I think general bio. But he's a super nice guy, and I had him for 2 classes already. And so I actually approached him, went to his office, and just asked if it was possible that I could do research with him. And he is a busy man, and he's one of the few professors here that does actual field research, like goes out in the streams and takes water samples and stuff. And so he's very sought after for research. And so I actually approached him like a whole semester earlier than when I had planned on starting to do research with him, which was very beneficial to give him that time to make sure that I was on the list, which is who I am doing research with this semester, and I plan to do in the spring as well. I don't know exactly what we will be doing because we haven't really started, but from what he's told me, I'll probably be going out to like Cypress Creek and taking water samples and possibly extracting eDNA. So yeah, so it's really cool how I will be able to have the opportunity to have had lab experience with Dr. Beecraft, but also field experience with Dr. Ray. And even though, like I said, lab experience is not ideally what I want to do after I graduate, it was still good to have that experience. You know, you never know how you're going to meet people and find jobs, so it's always good to make as many connections as you can, which is also why it's good to make sure that your professors know who you are, and so they can recommend you for other opportunities and things like that. This summer I spent 10 weeks at Duke University Marine Lab doing REU, which stands for Research Experience for Undergraduates. So it was essentially a paid internship. They paid me like $6,000 to be there and paid for my housing and travel and everything, which apparently is pretty normal when it comes to REUs, which makes them very competitive. When I applied to 10 because they are so competitive, and I ended up only getting accepted to 2. And so, but let me back up and talk about what REUs are in the first place. So I had never heard of REUs before I came to UNA, and it actually wasn't even until I emailed one of my professors and was like, I want to do research during the summer, but I don't know how, and I don't know what I should do, you know, because I'm interested in marine biology, and so I was like, should I go to Dauphin Island and take classes there, or should I pay for one of these fancy programs where I go to South Africa or something like that? And she was like, how about we meet in the middle, where it's, like I said, basically a paid internship. And so it really varies what you do when it comes to what place you are doing research at. At the Duke Marine Lab, it's all marine related things. And I found this REU through the NSF website. So the NSF, National Science Foundation, pays for all of these REUs. And so you can go through and you can filter out exactly what field you're interested in. So I was able to go in and specifically filter out marine biology as the field I was interested in. And then there were probably like 30 REUs after that, and then you had to go through and figure out which ones worked with your schedule, because like some didn't end until after classes started here, and so I couldn't do those. And then some were interested in like plants, which nothing against plants, but they're just not my thing. And so so I didn't apply to those. And so you just had to kind of root through and read what each professor was interested in at each of these universities or aquariums. it's not just universities that offer REUs, it's also aquariums or organizations. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other things outside of the marine field that I'm unaware of. But it was super beneficial. So like I said, I was there for 10 weeks. And so I worked in a lab from 9 to 5 days a week. And so I did a lot of PCR, I did DNA extraction, and I did a lot of like a data pipeline where I was analyzing the sequences from the DNA. I learned so much because it was all hands-on. Everything that I did was hands-on. I mean, the only quote-unquote learning was when my professor, he wasn't even my professor, I guess my advisor, I don't know what to call him. His name's Tom. He's great. Anyways, he would show me how to do something and then I would do it. And that was it. That was the only like learning you really did. Duke was really helpful in that they also had additional activities that we got to do. Like I got to go surfing and sailing. And there was someone came in that looked at our resumes, and there was like a grad student panel, and I learned so much about grad school. So, and you know, I met so many people. I met all the other REUs, which they were from all over the country. He was even from China. One was from Chile, and then others were like from Florida, Texas. It was crazy. But it was really cool, you know, to be able to make those connections, and of course make the connections with fellow Duke students and then also Duke professors. And so, yeah, it was super beneficial and informative, and I learned so much about the field and so much about what real life research looks like. At the end of it, I had to write a research paper. It ended up being 12 pages long, not double spaced, I might add. And I also had to present my research to a group. I actually ended up missing my in-person presentation because I was on a boat for 4 days whale watching, but I still had to video it and submit it. But still, that seems pretty common with the other people I know in REUs. There is someone else here at UNA that did an REU at Berkeley, and she had to present her research at the end. She presented it to her lab that she worked in, but she also had to present it to the people at Berkeley. And then I know someone else that did one in Indiana, and she had to present hers. So I'm pretty sure that the presenting is pretty common. It's about a 10-minute presentation, which kind of sounds intimidating, but you have spent a whole summer working on this research that it becomes pretty second nature. It's understandable and easy. But yeah, I would highly recommend doing an REU. They look great on a resume, and like I said, you learn so much about the field, especially if you do it in the field that you're interested in.